interesting off-brand things or whatever you can't really get at like bigger stores. So although I love Buc-ee's, but I always try to find these little interesting places.
Yeah, the mom and pop owned. It's something I kind of miss from. So I grew up in Philadelphia area, and all the delis around there. I feel like you could go to a deli a day and still not hit all of them.
Oh yeah,
to get that good food. So
yeah.
But all right, so we're going to jump right in. I'd like to welcome everybody back to Alabama Care. And today we're going to be talking about the power of music with Mr. Mark Lucas, the founder of the Music Room here in Leeds, Alabama. And at this point, I'd like to hand it over, Mr. Lucas, if you would introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on this. Like you said, my name is Mark Lucas. I'm the founder of the Music Room. We're located in downtown Leeds. We've been in business for a little over 10 years now. We started in little after 2012, and we've been working with individuals with special needs, neurotypical children and adults, doing all facets of music instruction. And we're really, really blessed to be here and really, really fortunate to do what we do.
Yeah, we were just talking before we went live about how Leeds is kind of growing. Yeah. Irondale and Leeds area is really kind of blowing up here. And you guys have a great spot right downtown on the main alley here.
Yeah.
Very easy to get to, very accessible.
For sure. And interestingly enough, this is actually our third location. So we've always been in Leeds, but we've been, throughout the years we've grown. So we started off, there's a really big haunted house over here called Atrox Factory. And on a street that runs next to it's called 15th Street. And we started off over there in a little corner storefront. And we moved over on the other side of town to First Avenue near a big plant called Lehigh. So, and then eventually we settled here in downtown Leeds, which is kind of the premier spot, which everyone can see. And we've been here for about, going on 4 years in this location. It's been really great.
So the Music Room's been up and running, you said, for about 10 years, and you guys have been able to grow. So that's a success story we love to hear.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate because when we started, obviously Leeds didn't have any kind of music instruction, or they didn't have any kind of music store, anything like that. So I kind of saw an opportunity to have Leeds as our first real location and kind of build within this community.
Now, what is so? I'll take a little bit of step back. Are you originally from Alabama?
I am actually. I grew up right down the road on Highway 78. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm actually. That was my first. That was really my stomping ground is Leeds, and I really love the community. The people here are great. It's a very close knit and very supportive area. So.
And it's always good to go back home and be able to give back to the community and be a staple of that community.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's like. It really means a lot, and because I didn't go to school in Leeds. I went to school in Moody, but Moody and Leeds are neighboring communities, and it's cool to see a lot of the people who I grew up with or my old teachers and everything, and they say, "Hey, I know what you do," and everything. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like giving back to the place that kind of made you a little bit.
Yeah. So a lot of your work has been focused around music, whether that's performing, teaching. Mm-hmm. What is your connection to music, and when did that start?
Well, first of all, music's been just a huge part of my life. I grew up in somewhat of a musical family. My dad was in broadcast and radio and advertising, so I grew up in studios and kind of vocal booths and behind soundboards and things like that. And he was also he's a voice talent, so he does. He had a radio show. He did ad work. He wrote and produced in the advertising world, and so from a young age I was really intrigued and inspired by all that went behind the making of things like that, because it's kind of what I grew up around. He also played guitar. He's kind of like a classical type player. He's also kind of like a classic rock guy, but he kind of sang and played growing up, and I always thought it was really cool.
What's his favorite band that you remember hearing growing up all the time?
Oh, that he played, or that was just kind of played in the house?
Just kind of played in that. Well, both actually. I'll say both.
My dad's he's kind of like his style is somewhat like country rock. So he's into like. He might get mad at me because I get it wrong. But like I don't know, Steve Miller Band.
Just
think
like the
guys
classics from that
yeah,
time.
yeah, like I don't know, Neil Diamond, guys like that.
Yeah.
But we always played. I grew up listening to like Dave Matthews, Blues Traveler, things like that, and I got really inspired by like kind of those playing styles.
Yeah.
And I just like pursued it throughout my life. Music's kind of been the thing I've always done. I've identified it a lot with it kind of throughout the years.
Yeah, I always remember my dad playing Neil Young growing up, or like going on family car trips and hearing Neil Young for like repeat.
Yeah.
And then I go back and I listen to those songs now, and it's like nostalgia. It takes me back to that time and that era of good family times.
Yeah.
But I could tell that you had a decent amount of experience kind of behind the scenes. You're asking about the cameras we're using as we're pulling them out. I'm
right.
Like,
yeah.
Dude, I have no idea what these are.
My wife's actually the camera expert. She's big. She's a really talented photographer. And we do all our own, social media and photography and everything. So we kind of get into the technical aspects of things because, when it comes to whenever you're creating art, whether it's like visual art or, musical art or anything like that, your gear is very important, and people don't think about that because people think like a camera's a camera, a guitar's a guitar. And it's like, really, there's so much intricacy that goes behind these things that make the biggest differences.
Yeah. And, they double in capacity every 18 months.
Oh, for sure.
It's Moore's Law or something.
It's ever evolving.
Yeah. So you have a big passion for music. And then what is kind of your connection to the disability community?
So I guess my connection with like the disability community comes from my own experience as well. I grew up with something called cortical dysplasia, which if you don't know what that is, it's a disorder. Like mine was a neurological disorder where I was born with somewhat of like a birthmark on my brain. It's basically like a portion of dead tissue on my brain. So like imagine your brain and just a section of it just doesn't work. And as you get older, the way the brain functions, like you use some parts of your brain at certain ages, and as you grow up, you use more and more. There's a pruning process, and then there's like kind of like an expansion process. And when I was a very young kid, I didn't have any issues really, but when I got to about 12 or 13, I started experiencing all these like strange neurological symptoms, and we didn't really know at the time, but come to find out it was manifesting in epilepsy. So because of that cortical dysplasia I was having, I started having seizures. I started having a bunch of big problems, and it kind of got progressively worse as I got older and older. But throughout my own experience dealing with that, I kind of learned to have somewhat of a connection and a compassion for people who had, other problems. And one thing out of my experience I noticed was if people knew I had some kind of issue, or, you can call it a disability, you can call it whatever, but if people know that, they'll kind of like start treating you a little bit different, and they don't mean to, but they'll treat you like you're kind of like a little bit more precious. You know, it's like, oh, you're breakable and everything. So I tended not to ever tell anyone. And out of telling no one, like sometimes it got me in trouble and sometimes it worked because for example, I would go to school or I'd be in college and I would tell no one I had any problems. And all of a sudden, like in class, I had this huge seizure and everyone freaks out. And I remember I had a professor at, I think I was at UAB at the time, and she pulled me aside of her class and she's like livid at me. She's like, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, I don't know, because I'm just like a kid. But I learned like, I kind of like understood that, when you have something happening, you really don't want to tell anyone, even though there's like a level of embarrassment. At the same time, you have to be transparent with people,
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of understood their other people's situations a little bit more.
Yeah. So it was a really personal experience there, and to kind of make sure I understand. So there's a little bit of almost when you're going through it, I feel like a tattoo on a skin,
right?
Kind of thing. But it wasn't, that part of the brain wasn't being used much in infancy. But as you started to get older and our brains use more areas, that's when you started noticing more of those symptoms.
Right. Yeah. So it always existed, but at a certain point in my life, it really manifested, or it really kind of reared its head. And the way that happened was through epilepsy. I started having seizures, and I started having like progressively worse episodes, as I got older.
And I mean, can you remember what it felt like the first time, like being like, what is going on? I would imagine if I started having a seizure, I would be wigging out.
Oh yeah.
It's something new that I haven't experienced before.
Oh, for sure. I remember my first seizure episode very, very clearly, and it was pretty frightening, because I must have been maybe 12 or maybe a little younger, but right around there. I remember like it woke me up out of sleep at night, and I was like kind of like gasping for breath, and kind of like my body was locked up, and I had, you don't really know what's happening. And my parents took me to the emergency room, and the doctors didn't know what was happening, because they're like, oh, maybe he had an asthma attack or something like that, because after a seizure and you come out of it, there's really no way of knowing, because like once you're out of a seizure, you're like, take some time, and then you're okay again,
Yeah.
And so when it's over, and you can't really be like, well, what was that, aside from like your own kind of reasoning.
That just happened kind of thing. And I've seen, my neighbors had a dog, and I have a dog, and they used to get along very well. The neighbor dog passed away, but he used to have seizures quite frequently. And I remember, the time that they were playing, and he had a seizure, and the recovery time for him was like a day. It took a long time,
Yeah.
really wiped him out there.
Yeah.
So to be able to, really important there. Just kind of offshoot, what would you say to somebody like a close friend that may have a friend that does have seizures? How would you coach them to help in that situation?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is like managing your emotions is big, because like the person normally who's having a seizure is, and I say this from my own experience, that, there's nothing you can do. It's like you hear about this, like, oh, like pull their tongue or put something. It's like never put anything in anyone's mouth. Don't do anything. You kind of just have to make sure their head doesn't hit anything, make sure they're clear of danger, but you kind of have to let the thing ride out. And, there are complications and things that happen in that process. It's rare that something really bad happens. Usually when people have seizures, it's a pretty scary, violent process. But then when it's done, you can kind of get people back to kind of like baseline. But really just like helping them make sure their head's stable. Don't panic. If they're having a hard time breathing, try to, get them in a position to where like air can flow more properly. But really you just gotta ride that wave out, honestly.
Yeah, I think
it's as unfortunate as that is.
And it can feel a little helpless.
Oh, for sure.
Like you want to be able to do something, but like you said, you have to ride it out.
Yeah.
And I have heard the thing, put something in the mouth, biting down on the tongue.
Yeah. I'm not really sure where that came from. But you never want to put anything in anyone's mouth, especially if they're like, if they kind of don't have control of their body and they're kind of moving, erratically, like violently, kind of like back and forth. So, you really just want to stabilize them as much as possible, and, manage your own panic or whatever. Because you do want to, when you see someone out of control in any way, we have that natural tendency to freak out a little bit. But normally, if you are on the outside of a seizure and you can be okay when they are out, they're going to be okay, So it really helps.
My family member, my aunt, she used to have seizures quite often, but with the right medication. And it took a while to find that medication. She hasn't had a seizure, I think, in the last 6 years, and we've been very grateful for that.
That's great.
But at 12 years, having your first seizure, what was that process look like in receiving services or visiting doctors?
The first thing is figuring out even what's happening. That was the main struggle for me, is because, especially when you're a young kid, it's like, well, it could be 100,000 different things. You're still developing. Sometimes when you have a problem, it'll look like one thing one time. The next time it arises, it looks like something totally different. The figuring out process of what was happening was really long, because at first they were like, well, maybe it's asthma, maybe it's Tourette's, maybe it's an allergy, everything. So, the trying out of different medications was a whole process, because there are a lot of great medications out there, but finding the right one.
It has to be a fit. Yeah,
for sure. Because some, can make things worse, some can make things better, some things may work for a while and no longer work. But that was a big, extensive process. And for me, because kind of like my problems were evolving, I had to go through so many different ones and different treatments and diets and all these things just to kind of figure it out. And it's kind of exhausting, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I imagine you just kind of want to be like, I just want to have the answer here.
Oh yeah.
And I'll do that as long as it works. But
Yeah.
being frustrated that it's not easy to come to that answer.
For sure. And more than me, you know, my parents.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one thing we see here is like normally the kids just kind of like go, they want to live their life. They want to, you know, just be normal. But the parents are the ones who like, I would do anything just to, you know, get my kid, you know, normal or, you know, out of this issue or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the work, you know, we'll do here is really kind of reassuring parents and being there for them, because we kind of build a community, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's what I saw. I was like, I kind of saw my parents are like, you know, really, you know, worked really hard to get me answers, and I really appreciate that. I had a great support system.
Yeah. So here at the music room, when you start to work with a child with a disability, a lot of times are their parents in the room with you for the first few sessions?
Sometimes, yeah, and a lot of them, you know, they kind of turn their kids over and be like, you know, here it is.
Yeah.
It just depends, you know. The cool thing about our setup is it's pretty open, and so even if they're not like in with us, they can sit directly across and kind of have a nice little view and see how everything works. But
yeah, so you guys can see right now we're in one of the studio rooms here. You can kind of see the walls and the I'm not sure what they're called. The music pads are like dampening for the music. Soundproofing, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there are two swingable doors here that have some windows in them, so you can see what's going on, kind of waiting for your child. Or
yeah. So the cool thing is, like, you know, we can have the door shut to block a little bit of sound, and but then at the same time, you know, you can see through it, and it really works out, and it kind of it allows like everyone to kind of see how everything works, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it creates an open space.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, here at the music room, you have to have your own rooms for the lessons, but it kind of creates like a co-working space by having the windows there that you can see everything that's going on.
Yeah, and like the room we're in now, this is actually it's a guitar studio, but sometimes, you know, we'll use different rooms for different things. Like I'll do a lot of sessions in here, for example. Like if I want to get some of our kids on guitar, there's a piano behind me, and, you know, we can go back and forth from those instruments, as opposed to the studio over, that's kind of more of just a drum room. I do teach guitar out of there, but there's not as many options. And we have a room dedicated to piano and voice, and like just piano. And we have a big open front area where it's kind of like a multi-purpose room. So in a sense, each studio space serves a specific purpose, but, you know, we kind of use them, we kind of share them. You know what I mean?
Speaking of like the different instruments and kind of jamming, I remember I was in Chicago. I've only been in Chicago one time, but it was really cool. I ended up going out to like this jazz club, and what it was there was all these different types of instruments. There's piano, there's guitar, there was like saxophone. I didn't know every instrument up there, but what they would do is there can only be like one player of that instrument on stage at a time, and they would rotate through. So if you got up there, you would be on there for maybe 5 minutes, and then you would be kicked off by the person that replaced you, and they went on for 2 hours.
Wow.
Just jamming. And the person that, I think it was the last person to be on stage, got to like pick where the song was heading, and then they got off stage, and the others had to pick it up and like create that song.
Oh, very cool.
And it was like, there were no songs that I'd ever heard. They were just up on stage jamming.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's like some major improv skills. You know?
Yeah, no, it's exactly what it was. There was like nobody there. I was like, how is nobody here right now? This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of now was it kind of like jazz oriented? Like, was that the style of music?
Yeah, it was like a jazz club kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's such a fascinating style of music, you know.
Yeah,
that was like my style is I'm not a big jazz player. I had to do a little bit of that, you know, in different kind of areas of my, you know, music playing throughout the years. But I'm really more of like kind of like a rock guy. I've worked in a few different facets of music, but jazz is a whole different animal. It's a very interesting beast of music. You know?
Yeah, the electro jazz is fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, like the electronic kind of stuff,
Right.
and the dancing that comes with it is pretty out there.
Right.
So I listen to music throughout the day. I always have. Whenever I'm doing homework, I have to have music on, either on headphones or pretty high volume. For me, it tends to shut out a lot of noise, even though it feels, others would say, but you're wearing your headphones, it's really noisy. I don't get any other distractions when the music's there. And
Yeah.
I've done that growing up through college and continue to do it. If I have something that's due, I got to have the music on. And I've heard and read other articles where, children, especially some that have a disability, really take to music, that it's meaningful for them. They light up. And then you'll hear, like, even in nursing homes, somebody that has Alzheimer's, and they hear an old record and they instantly just taken back, and they're doing their dance that they used to do when they were younger.
Yeah.
Why is music so powerful there? What's the science behind it?
Oh, well, there's a lot. And I don't know all of the science, but I do know a few things. Like, we'll take your first point is, like, there's so many people connect with music, and music is it's one of those things that's so naturally ingrained in us as humans that we don't even realize how much of a part it is of us until like we hear it or we experience it, and more than that, the underpinning of that is like rhythm. For example, is like you hear a beat like this, and all of a sudden you're bobbing your head, and you add more to it, and it's like, oh, that's nice. You know what I mean? And what happens is everyone's got this kind of like internal rhythm in it, and some people express it more than others. But we've all, music's like a puppy. Who does, like? There's no one who just like hates puppies. I don't think, but hardly anyone just hates music. I mean, not everyone likes the same types of music, but it's something that universally, like, everyone be like, oh, I can dig that, or whatever, just depending on what it is. And going back to, like, you see these Alzheimer's patients with, they'll hear a song, and then they'll start dancing, or it'll like trigger a memory or like something. It's kind of like smells, aromatherapy. But if you think of what's happening there, our memories have like their own neural connections, and sometimes those are like dormant for a long time, and we don't even remember something until it takes like a catalyst, like this song triggers this neuro connection that triggers this memory, and and then which triggers an emotion, and you feel a certain way. And a lot of these, I've been in a lot of assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and hardly anyone I've worked with just doesn't get into certain music. I used to do a lot of like doo-wop and 50s and like Chuck Berry, old school. And they all dig it, and they all can do the same dance moves, and they can all like do the same rhythms. And it's really amazing to see, because even if we think we've forgotten something, we probably haven't as much as we think we have. It just takes a certain thing to trigger that.
Yeah, it's almost like the music can help anchor a core memory.
Of course, yeah.
What was that movie? It's a Disney movie, The Core Memories. Inside Out. Did you ever see that?
I haven't. No.
I definitely recommend it. It's a great movie. But the music and the body being connected there, the sound and the rhythm and the beat. It's like when you hear a great song to you for the first time, or even a couple times, like the hair on the back of my neck goes up, like the hair on my arm goes up, and it's just a natural reaction that I'm so in tune to that tune that's going on right there.
Right.
And subconsciously my body's saying, yes, that's a good thing.
Exactly. And if I kind of going back to like rhythm, for example, like we focus so much on the aspect of rhythm because it's such a core fundamental. Like if I do this, for example, if I go like we all know what that is, right?
Yeah.
It's very iconic, sticks with you. And
We're good.
But yeah, it's a really interesting thing to see how so many people progress so quickly just from the aspect of developing rhythm.
So is it necessary to learn at a young age?
I mean, not really. People. We have a lot of like parents bring their kids in, and I'll talk to the parent and be like, "Oh, I wish I could do X, Y, and Z." I'm like, you really can. Like a lot of like kind of like ideas around music is that, I have to get my kid in when they're 2 years old and start
Playing piano by 3.
Yeah, and it's like not necessarily because you can develop these skills at any age. Like obviously, you want to starting early and then developing skill for years is better than like trying to develop skill for half the time, right?
Yeah.
But it's time spent in the instrument. Like if someone's 50 years old, you put an hour of practice a day into guitar, and then by the time you're 55, you're going to probably be
Couple songs under your belt.
I mean, you'll be phenomenal. It depends on how interested you are in it.
My excuse has always been like I really enjoy listening to music. When I hear a good beat, I tend to recognize it pretty well. But when it comes to trying to play an instrument, it just doesn't click for me.
Yeah. It depending on each instrument is pretty individual, but a lot of them are very similar. Me personally, I teach drums and guitar. I've been playing music for over 20 years. I started when I think I started playing when I was like, my parents got me a keyboard when I was like 8 or something like that, and I would like mess around on it and developing my ear and things like that. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed, like I said earlier, being around aspects of like audio and things like that. But when I was on my keyboard, I was like, I really learned a lot about notes and how they work together. And my dad played guitar. He would play and sing, and I would mess around on it, and kind of just and I understood like, oh, half of what makes this cool is like how the notes go together. You know what I mean? So if I can take like 3 notes that out of a scale and then add some like cool stuff, I was like, I've got a song. And then you kind of go from there. But I always say, if you've got rhythm, you're going to be able to play really well.
Now, do you focus like, is it really important to be able to read music, sheet music, or starting out you just kind of got to get a feel for the instrument?
Yeah, it's like, well, it depends on like a teaching style. Like my teaching style is like, I want you to understand this instrument first, and like everything else is going to kind of come later. Like if you can understand how this, like a guitar, like if you can like handle it, get kind of like interface with the instrument, understand like how to groove with it a little bit more. And instead of me showing you, I was like, all right, well, here's how the notes go, X, Y, Z, because they're going to piece out in their mind, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of like taking an SAT or something like
right.
that. Right.
So, if you can get some like practical application of the instrument first, and then understand, okay, well, how do we understand this music, and how do we read it, and how do we kind of go from there? It makes the learning process a lot easier and a lot more tolerable.
So it's really in the beginning, getting comfortable with the instrument, making it an extension of yourself.
Yeah.
And I really liked how you put in there being able to jam. I might have said it differently, but being able to jam with the instrument and kind of move with it as it's creating that music. Now, for some, it might be a little bit tough. Maybe there are some physical limitations. Are there adaptive equipment?
So I don't necessarily use any adaptive equipment necessarily, but what I do use is different types of instruments. Like I use a lot of different like percussion instruments, for example. I'll use like hand drums, shakers, tambourines. I can like guitars, things you can kind of strum. It's and I guess you could call that adaptive, but depending on like any kind of limitations, over the years, I've gotten pretty creative on how to adapt it for people. Whether I have to hold that drum up to someone else, or whether I have to like attach a shaker to like some kind of prosthetic, whatever.
Yep.
I've kind of done it all. So, yeah, you can, and you'd be surprised how much you can adapt like regular instruments to whatever needs you're trying to work with.
And you got to be creative there. So it's kind of on the spot.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're going to try this. Let's see how it works. Let me know how that feels.
Right.
And we'll continue to jam out there.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't even use instruments at all. Sometimes it's just like clapping, stomping,
That's
singing.
a great point.
Yeah. And it just depends. And what I try to do as well is like, everyone has different interests and different things they like. So I try to adapt to like whoever I'm working with is like, I always want to know what they like, because if I'm not gonna like jam AC/DC with you if you don't like rock music, I'm not gonna try and get you to play piano if you don't like piano. I would rather go for something that the individual actually likes, and then be like, all right, so how can we make this really beneficial?
Is there an instrument that you see most people when they walk through the door for the first time want to try? Is it usually like drums, or usually guitar? Or?
I don't know if this is like a visual aspect or not, but when you first come through the door of the studios, we have this big open room that's got drums and a piano in it. All the kids run to the drums and start beating it.
Yeah.
But they're bright, they're colorful. And like everyone can, hit a drum, whether you feel like you're good at it or not. Like no one, I don't know, that there's the learning curve for percussion is a lot lower than something like guitar, for example.
Yeah, or violin.
Yeah, right. Anything you have to kind of like play with your fingers and your hands and all that stuff, and press down strings.
So you've had quite a career in music, and if you could talk a little bit about the Tate Music Group and Sparrow.
Sure. Well, number one, I've been a musician my whole life. I've been in and out of so many different projects. The Sparrow was one of my bigger projects. I guess I must have been 17 or 18 at the time, maybe younger, because I was in that. I was doing that for a few years. It was me. It was me. I was on guitar, like rhythm guitar. I had a couple other of my friends. We had a lead guitarist, we had a drummer, we had a vocalist who played bass. We had a few people float in and out of that group. And I was coming off of like being in, funny enough, I was being in like hardcore bands, like in the
like kind of more. I used to jam out to them. Who are they? Let the bodies hit the floor kind of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, right.
I can't remember the name of them right
now. Like, man, what was that? Who did that song? I can't remember.
System of a Down?
It's not System of a Down.
Somebody.
It's just.
It's not Disturbed.
I can't remember.
We'll think of it. Someone will.
Yeah, it'll come up in like 5 minutes.
Right. But anyways, so it was like hardcore. I don't know if you've ever heard like screamo. Like
I was gonna say screamo.
Yeah, like Hawthorne. Have you heard? We weren't like Hawthorne Heights, but we. There we go. But I was coming off of being in like hardcore bands, and I was kind of in a different. That was kind of phased out. I didn't play music for a while, and then I've been kind of like in and out of playing church for my whole life, and I was like, I'd like to do a Christian music project. Like kind of write contemporary Christian rock, and that was getting big at the time, kind of like in the 2000s. So we started writing and playing for the in this Christian music project, and we would like tour. We do like festivals and churches, and play some of our own stuff. We do a bunch of cover tunes and things like that. So like eventually, probably a year or so into that, it's like we got a little publishing deal with this record label. I think they were out of Oklahoma City, and I don't even know if they're around anymore. But we did. They came to us and did like, all right, do cut 8 tracks. And
now you mean cut 8 tracks is create 8 songs?
Yeah. So it's like, so our publishing deal was 8 songs on a EP record, and we flew to Oklahoma. We recorded the tracks, and that was like my first like big experience in like kind of like first taste in the music industry, because like I had recorded other stuff prior, but it was all like a buddy's basement or someone coming into my house and like recording this part and then cutting it with drummer down the road or whatever. But it was a really cool experience. I went in, and I was already kind of familiar with how the whole process worked, but it was very cool to be outside of like Birmingham kind of music scene and doing that.
Yeah, well, to fly to OKC to record is huge.
Yeah, it was very fun. I felt important at the time. We were very excited. But so yeah, but we recorded 8 songs, and we kind of like we play. We kind of did the church tour. We would play different churches, and we already had a lot of church connections because we were in the Christian music sphere, and we did like songwriting contests and little festivals and all these things, and it was really cool at a young age to have some underpinning to a music career, because it gives you legitimacy when you can say like, oh yeah, I'm with this group and whatever, and we've recorded and done this stuff, and it helped out later as I kind of kept on going into music. So
Yeah.
it was like gave me a better understanding of how the whole thing worked.
Yeah, and that's a benchmark. That's a pin in the jacket, for that, for moving forward there. Now, was your bandmates, were they also from the previous band?
No, so this so the Spiro band, it was actually comprised of myself and like a few people that I'd gone to school with.
Yeah.
And we had, like I said, we had a few people who would like floating in and out, because like half the time we have like a synth player or something like that, but not all the time. It was really like there were like 3 core members, and I was one of them, because I think I was writing most of the music at the time, and we would so like no matter how many people we had, we always had like 3, you know. And that's how a lot of groups work. Like if you see a band play live, you'll see someone up on the stage and be like, I don't recognize you. He's like playing synth or something, and that's kind of like how bands work, depending on like what sound they want to get. They'll get like different folks to like sit in and play.
I'm just imagining, I don't know if this is a transition, but like going from one, playing it live in a screamo, and then like driving down the road and then playing at a church.
Oh yeah, it's funny because not a lot of people know this, but in the early 2000s, like the big local music scene was like hardcore, kind of screamo type deal. But a lot of those were like Christian bands, you know. So I don't know if you're familiar with a band called like Under Oath, for example. Yeah, so I think they just released a new record recently, but they were like, they were a Christian band, but they had, they were like, rah! And I was in a lot of those. I was in and out of, because like in the local music scene, what will happen is like I'm in a band, right? And then I'll get a call from another band, like, hey, Jim Bob's sick on drums, can you fill in? And it's like, so you end up playing with everyone.
Yeah.
And it gives everyone like a really cool experience.
Yeah, it's a cool community building there.
Right.
Helping people out. So you went to OKC, recorded, but you've also been to California for music as well.
Right. Yeah. I got to work. I've worked with Bethel Publishing, or Bethel Church, which is in Redding, California. They have a publishing company called Bethel Music, and a lot of big Christian music comes out of these big churches like Bethel's.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So they're kind of it's a church, but then they also have a publishing company like on site.
Mm-hmm. So it's within the church. Hillsong's got one as well. So they like a bunch of music comes out of Hillsong. Elevation Worship. A lot of these big churches they produce their own music. So. And a lot of the people who go there, they're so talented. You hear, I think everyone knows the song, Hillsong does like, this is old. I was playing this like last night. Oceans, for example, like from Hillsong.
I'd have to hear it. I'd have to hear the beat. If I hear the beat, I can like remember the song, but I'm really bad with lyrics or song names.
But there's so many of the songs you probably sing on Sunday come out of these churches, and I got the opportunity to work with Bethel through, it's kind of like through an internship, and I don't even know, kind of the stars aligned on it, because I had a friend who's a youth pastor here in Leeds, and he was kind of like transitioning to a new career, and I was kind of like in between, what I wanted to do, and he was like, hey, I was like, do I want to do music? Do I want to do whatever? And he was like, hey, did you know that, Bethel has this, you can go intern with them and whatever. I'm like, how do you do it? And so it was like you had to submit an application. There's somewhat of an audition process. And it was like a mini music school. And basically you have like your focus instrument, like, and mine was like percussion. And you get to, you take their classes, and you get to work in their production arena with like these big players, and I'm like, I can't, I was in the same. I was working with, I don't know if you've heard of Jesus Culture. They're out of Bethel Church, and they're a very, very popular Christian music group. They were at the time, and guys like Jeremy Riddle, Brian Jen Johnson, Matt Stinton, a lot of these like Christian music artists, and Bethel I was there in 2012, and they were working on a instrumental record at the time, and we got a chance to kind of like mess with those tracks.
Yeah.
And it was like I felt like I've made it here.
Yeah.
And
well, to be in that system, they're able to they have that system that's built for producing that music.
Yeah.
And so to see kind of what that looks like and be alongside others that maybe have been to the next step.
Yeah.
And kind of learn from them in a mentorship and a peer.
Of course, working with them was very rewarding, and most of what I've learned about like writing and producing music, or just about making music on like that level in general, came from working in church and working with people who are obviously much more seasoned than I was.
Now, where is Redding in Cali?
So it's Northern California. It's probably,
is it like Redwood area?
Somewhat. Probably it's like an hour and a half from like the Oregon, like the California, like
state line out there.
State line.
How long were you out there?
So I was there for a while. I was like, how long was that? Probably close to a year.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long, but I lived out there for about a year or so, and it was so cool because I've only lived in the South my whole life.
Yep.
And it was a really, really cool experience because you're immersed in like a different culture, and
it's a little bit of a culture shock, and a year is long enough to get to know the local culture. It's not like you're only there for a week and you hit up all the best restaurants and then left town. But you got to experience it, and I've always wanted to do that in the Northwest. So I've got kind of the Northeast where I grew up, and then I lived in the Southwest in Phoenix for like 8 years, and now I've been in here Alabama for 5. I've never spent any time in the Northwest.
It's cool, Northern California itself. Like it was like a little like thing of paradise because temperate all year round. Yeah. And it's beautiful. You have the mountains, you have the coast if you want, and it's a very creative environment. But it was very, very cool, and Bethel as a church it's beautiful. It's on top of a mountain, and they have a lot of good people run that place. And it was a very, very rewarding experience.
So you've had the opportunity to be next to some of these bigger artists and kind of learn there, but you also have done your own writing and recording.
Mm-hmm. I've worked in and out of like the music industry for a while, and a lot of it's like freelance. A lot of what writers and producers do, they work in multiple studios. So like there's a lot of studios in Nashville and Atlanta and places like that. And when you kind of work as a songwriter, you'll write, I don't know, 100 songs a year. You'll record 50 of those songs, and then 10 of those songs someone wants. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot of working with different people and different studios and things to finally kind of catch a fish on the hook. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the process behind it is for me, it's very fun. Most people don't know what all goes into making a song.
Yeah, I don't. And there's a documentary that just came out. I'm looking to watch it. It's a Kanye documentary, how he made like his beats and then how he got into. I'm a big Kanye fan.
Cool. Yeah, Kanye's. Yeah. I like Kanye.
He's kind of. I saw him before he blew up in Philadelphia in concert.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was like a small venue, not many people there. He came out with like double pop polos. It's like, dude,
I remember those, like pink polos. I remember those.
Yeah, he had like a lime green and then a lemon double pop polo. It's really funny.
Those were big back in the day.
Yeah, but seeing kind of like what's behind the scenes, I know nothing about that. And even just from what we do, kind of like we'll do some videos. On the side for different organizations, and to see what Clifton does in like Premiere, clipping, audio stuff there, it's like there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, there is, and there's actually a lot of people that go into it. Like a song you hear probably 3 or 4 people have their hand in that song, you know, because you have songwriters, you have producers, you have audio guys, you have co-writers, you have, you know, session players, you have a lot of things, and that's something that I got the chance to do for a while. I was like, I got to session play and figure out like you know, different instrumentation for songs, and you know what sounds the best, and what tones are going to go with what. But it's a very involved process. Song recording is.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of like, you ever heard of Modest Mouse?
Yeah.
There's just how they use so many different instruments. There's a lot of things going into that that you may not realize it's there.
Yeah.
Now, on your website, you are a drum therapist.
That's, yeah. So the story behind that's interesting too. So speaking of session playing, I met this guy, and he's a pretty big drum. He's written some books. He's done a lot of session work. He's been out of some bands, but a guy named Pat Gesualdo came up with a program called the DAD program, which is Drums and Disabilities, and he's in the north somewhere, but he created kind of like this workshop type deal where he was taking, I think he was taking drum pads and like playing in like retirement facilities and places like that. And I met him, and I'm like, hey, what you're doing is really cool, because this was like the infancy of the music room. I'm like, and I was trying to develop programs of my own. Yeah. And I was we went back and forth on what works and what doesn't. I kind of took his program, and he educated me a lot on what he does. And then I took that, and I'm like, I want to do this like kind of on a different level, because I think where my niche was like, I wanted to work with kind of anyone, you know. I didn't really want to say you have to like follow X, Y, or have to like, you have to be X, Y, Z, you know, able to do this, like, because I was like, I think I can be creative enough to like, no matter what someone's need or disability is, like we can make music somehow, whether that's like clapping and stomping, or whether that's like just beating on the drum or whatever. So instead of having kind of like a rigid, like I say rigid, kind of like more of a framework on like, this program works exactly like this, and it's like mine's going to be a little bit more kind of improv, you know what I mean?
Free flowing there. Like if you're interested in music, we'll make it work.
Yeah. And also I don't limit it to drums. I try to involve stringed instruments, pianos, singing, other things. Even though I'm not necessarily a vocalist, but like a lot of our people like love to sing.
I think everybody's got a Grammy or an Emmy from the shower singing.
Right,
you know, we're all great singers.
Yeah, we have. There's some people who teach vocals, like say, you know, everyone can sing, which is, I guess it's true, just developing your ear. But like some people are just like more naturally talented.
Yeah, I'm not one of those.
Right.
Now you do individual sessions. We are here at the music room, and we can see the opportunity for individual sessions. Actually, right next door, we had an individual session going on that kind of finished up there. So people are able to come here into Leeds, but then you also will travel places.
Yeah. I do, and so what we do, I'll start here, is we do all our lessons and programs mostly here. We offer just typical music lessons, which is a large part of our clientele is regular music lessons, and at the same time, you know, we offer something called neuro-inclusive lessons, and we do a lot of those sessions here. Speaking of like traveling out, sometimes a lot of school systems, a lot of special needs organizations, they'll contact us and be like, hey, we're doing a camp or whatever, can you come out and do some music? And I'd be like, of course, yeah. And so I have a lot of, I just load my car up with my drums, and I'll put on like big music programs.
Yeah.
And it works a lot the same way it does here, except, you know, sometimes I'll work with like 50, 100 people at a time, and then we're kind of doing this big like collab, you know, rhythm project, or something like that.
I
And
did-
it's really fun.
I did see like the ADRS Rehabilitation Services downtown. We did. This is our first year. We got some video for them of a drum session that they had. There's probably 30 kids there, and the instructor at the front of the room would do like, boom boom, and then everybody else would have to do boom boom.
Yeah,
and
right.
kind of lead that interaction there. And is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'll do some call and response things like you play this, you play this. My favorite thing to do is I like to kind of bring the party a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, I like for everyone to have some kind of instrument, whether you have a drummer or shaker or something, just some noisemaker, sticks, whatever. And I'll lead a rhythm or a song. Sometimes I'll take my guitar and start playing some rock tune, and I'll get like everyone to like play like a beat or something behind it. And like what happens is I'll start them on something, and then all of a sudden it'll go from this to like, and it's something like really cool.
Yeah.
Because rhythms will tend to naturally evolve, as over time you play it. Because if you get used to a rhythm, what happens is like if I'm playing this, I can be like, oh, I can add that, or I can add that, and people start kind of developing their own little song. And that's kind of like the magic I like to pull out. Is I like to get people to play and experience things they probably wouldn't have otherwise, because they're of some beliefs. It's like, oh, this is too hard. It's like, no, just like do it over and over, and you'll realize
this may be the first time they've interfaced with an instrument,
right? Yeah.
And to see, I'm sure you see a lot of smiles when they see that they're creating this music.
Yeah.
And because I feel like a lot of times there are some limiting beliefs maybe, and it's like, oh, even for myself, I can't play an instrument. But if I really vibed with an instrument, it would make me very happy to be able to produce that kind of thing. So right now, I mean, there are school districts that can call you where you can go into the school district and, have an activity for an hour or so. There are camps that can call you and say, hey, we'd like you to come out to the camps. And there are organizations that serve the community that maybe have like a day program or something like that you guys will travel to and have an activity that way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really cool.
And we love, before we, I had these studios here. The majority of what I was doing was traveling. And as I was doing that, I was like kind of more building and refining my programs, because I was working with so many people on the outside. I got a lot of different like kind of test groups and I could see what worked best, what activities work best with what people. And at this point, I'm pretty refined on how things work and what the hits are, the hit activities are. Yeah. But people love, no matter what, people love the creative process of music. They just don't always understand what that is,
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that in the beginning you did a lot of the traveling, and that kind of is like figuring out exactly what the audience wants and spending that time there and fine-tuning that programming.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of, I feel like that's what we're doing. We're a traveling studio.
Yeah, right.
We would love to have a space like this in the future where we've got, 4 or 5 content creators going live in their own rooms at the same time. I think it'd be really cool. So we aspire to do this kind of thing.
I mean, it's just like, it's time spent in what you're doing, and you realize what works and what kind of doesn't. For us, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 other instructors besides myself. And they've each got their own style of instructing and teaching and working with their kids. And they're people, the people they work with, they just love them,
Yeah.
And it's funny how it works out, because like the students that I'll get, or my instructors will get, it seems to kind of be a fit on the style,
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like when I work with my kids, whether it's like neuroinclusive or whether it's like a typical lesson, it's very rock and roll, it's pretty, a lot of it's pretty high energy, and a lot of it's like pretty involved when it comes to like, what we're doing.
You've said the word neuroinclusive a few times. I've never heard that word before. Can you define that for somebody that's unfamiliar with that?
Sure. That's it. So neuroinclusive is a term that we actually came up with, and it was just a way for us to describe like a program that kind of fits all needs. Like no matter what your your
Challenge in
yeah,
life
no
may
matter
be.
what your challenge is, we kind of in like the in kind of like the special needs community or whatever you want to call it, like disability community. There's certain there's kind of like the lexicon's kind of like always evolving, and you have like you'd say like neurotypical is like someone who's kind of quote unquote like normal functioning, or you have I wish my wife was here. She's good at this. You have your other
Someone that might have Down syndrome
yeah
or something like that. And
I'll think of the term in a second.
yeah.
But we said neuro-inclusive just so we can be like, yeah, no matter if you have Downs, no matter if you have autism, whatever, we can form a program to fit you,
Yeah.
because a lot of it's actually very simple. And one thing I saw kind of like over my career is I saw a lot of different programs. I saw a lot of different people working with individuals with special needs, and I'm kind of sitting back and be like, you're making this so complicated. And I'm like, and people would be amazed if they really sat down and understood like what we're doing. It's so simple. It's really so simple. And it's so much of it is rhythm, and out of rhythm you can start adding in the notes and all the little intricacies of music, and all of a sudden you're able to like play a little tune or like enjoy music however you want to do it. But it's kind of like taking the barriers off of music and like kind of making it a little bit more user friendly.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like the kind of the belief aspect's big, and if you kind of already have in your head like, oh, I can't do this, like, well, probably you're not gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
But if you take a different approach to it, and you can be like number one, you gotta make it fun. Like music's a fun thing. You make it too serious, it loses all its you lose enjoyment.
Yeah.
And you gotta enjoy something to be able to be good at something. Or at least somewhat.
Yeah. So when you're going over that neuro-inclusive, it makes me think that, the program is very adaptable, and a big part of that process, instead of like, okay, just coming in here, we're going to pick up your guitar, is really spending time with the individual, maybe the child and the family there, to kind of ease them into the process and figure out what needs that they want. So it's spending more time up front to make sure that the program is adapted to what they need to have fun.
Right. And we've seen, I've worked with so many people throughout the years, and what I've seen is like there's some people who come in here, or some kids rather, and I'll work with them the first time and it's nothing but screams and ear holding, and then I'll tell the parents like, if you can bring them in again. And then the second time they're like, oh yeah, and it takes, when you introduce something like music to, let's say, a child with like a child with autism with like big sensory problems, normally they're gonna fight you at first, but then as they kind of get used to these different sounds and textures and sensory deals, is like they understand, they really dig it. Neurodiverse was this word I was looking for. Like you get neurotypical, neurodiverse, and then we kind of came up with neuroinclusive. So it's kind of like it kind of encompasses all the needs, so.
Yeah. And we saw a video the other day. It was an example of someone, I think, that had autism walking through a mall, and it was, blurry, and some sounds were really standing out. And I think it's, I could see how someone might be a little alarmed at first with like new sounds, especially if they're louder, but if they trust you,
right.
And they're seeing that they're contributing to what that sound is, I feel like that would be a big turning point. So to ask to come back again, or even a third time, and you see that break where they're like, they go from totally not being comfortable in the room to like, okay, I'm doing this. Like I'm actually creating this, is a huge transformation. Yeah,
it really is. And what I really love to see, and a big part of my goal is what you just said, is like, I want them to be the creator. You're the one creating this music right here. And a lot of our people, especially our autism kids, a lot of them wear headphones, and they're kind of always covering ears and things like that. And it'll be like that for a while. And one thing that I'll do is we'll be playing music, and I'll kind of like sometimes I'll kind of sneak up behind them and take those headphones off, and then they're still going.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, there we go, because I want them to at a certain level to have that sensory experience, because the more they can have that here, that little skill development is going to bleed over in the outside world, and maybe they won't be so sensitive, or with traffic or whatever, because like I want them to be adapted to things that are somewhat uncomfortable.
Yeah,
because
new situations.
it's just life skills, developing life skills.
Yeah, life skills. I like the way you put that there. And I just made a note. I would love to be a fly on the wall when that turning point happens.
Yeah.
For a child to see that happen for them, and the confidence that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, that can carry on throughout their entire life.
Yeah, for sure. And like the people or the families that we have here that bring their kids here and support is like there's unbelievable people. And I've been with some of the same kids for years.
Yeah.
I have two kids in particular who've been with me since they were like, I think since they were probably 6, 7, and now they're teenagers. And then and 3 kids actually who've been here for a very long time, because they probably without realizing they can develop a skill like this, they wouldn't have been able to had the courage to do other things or whatever. Like we're a small part of that, but it could be music, it could be like horseback, it could be a lot of things. But when parents especially see that breakthrough with their kids, will be like, oh, they can actually, they're not going crazy here. They can actually just like, yeah, just give it time. You'll encounter like fights and resistance along the way, but you stick with something.
And that helps at the family structure too. If a parent sees their child doing something that they didn't think they could do, and they had kind of that limiting belief as a parent,
right?
They're like, well, I wonder what else.
Exactly. It's a snowball that rolls.
Yeah, it really is.
And,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, what age groups? So if there is an individual out there or a parent thinking we would love to come into the music room, what age groups do you accommodate?
So we start at 7 years old, and the reason we do that is because I'm a big believer in, like, from until age 7, like your child really needs to experience the world and get into all kinds of things. Not to say that they can't have a structured activity, but normally after 7 they're going to be more inclined to really take to an activity like this a little bit better. But I mean, we work with adults, anything past age 7, like we're big into. Yeah. And also like their bodies are a little bit more developed and their skills are a little bit more developed. And that's for both our, our neuro-inclusive and our regular lessons. So it's a lot easier on the kid to engage in things like this.
Yeah, that makes sure that you don't have like a crazy parent being like, you're going to learn the piano at age 3.
And it's hard, I think a lot of parents kind of get that idea is like I gotta have my kid my kid needs to be a CEO at age 12. It's like, no, they need to experience the world and they need to play. Play's so important. And that's one thing we say here is like most of what you learn is through play. Like a lot of the way we teach is like it's play activity. It's like that exchange, and that's how humans naturally learn. It's like through play, experimentation, kind of like falling on your face, getting back up, all these things.
Yeah, I read a quote the other day. It's like when you see kids doing something dangerous, like a new activity, and but they're being confident about it, don't always step in and just pull them out of it. Like let them explore there.
Yeah, let them run around. Let them do that. Let them. It's okay for your child to like get hurt,
scrape a knee or something like that,
and because they're becoming adjusted to their environment in the world. And when you don't allow that, you're really kind of like stifling a lot of growth.
I'd like to recognize chat here. Holly Cawthorn says, hi guys. She's gotten on late, but look forward to viewing the entire video to learn more about the music room. It sounds like you do one-on-one sessions with persons/children with sensory issues. And the music room and Mark Lucas do individual sessions, but we'll also do group settings, as we've kind of talked about in the schools, retirement homes, maybe some day habilitation, stuff like that. So there are a number of different options. And Holly also says, this is phenomenal. Any chance of opening additional locations? You beat beat me to it, Holly. And she says, Alex, I have a music degree and I am especially interested in music projects. So
Very
Holly
cool.
Cawthorn is one of the heads for the Alabama Council of Developmental Disabilities, who funds Alabama Care.
Very cool.
So if you're not familiar with ACDD, it sounds like she's saying reach out.
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually not familiar, but I'd love to become more familiar because even though I've worked in this, I've worked in the special needs kind of like I guess microcosm for a while, but there's still a lot of organizations I'm not familiar with, and I've worked with a lot over the years who've been really phenomenal, and I'm always willing to like learn more and work with more people because that's just like kind of benefits both parties. Like I love to know who does what.
Now, how about the opening additional locations?
What's interesting, someone said that to me like the other day. I don't know exactly how I would do that. I mean, I could. It's not impossible.
Like a franchise? I don't know if you'd franchise it kind of thing or.
It could. I will say, we built something very special here, and I go back and forth between, should I franchise this or should it expand or should it just be this one kind of special place? And I'm not really sure what the answer is there, but
well, the cool thing is you said before is you can also travel. So it's like you're expanding the business and the services that you're able to provide because it can be mobile if it needs to be.
Yeah.
So even if you didn't have like another location in Montgomery or Mobile or Huntsville, you could always travel there, for the day or for a 2-day kind of thing.
Of course, yeah. We're always up for that, and all of that really is dependent on what people need or the opportunity or whatever. Because I'm always, people will reach out to us and ask us to do like like during the summers, like people have camps going and they'll want some activity and like a music activity, and we're always really. I'm always down for that because it's fun for me a lot of times because I get to meet new people. I get to work. I love working with big groups, like big rhythm activities with groups. It's so, it turns into something really, really fun.
I just imagine so there are a number of conferences that happen throughout the year where it's focused on parents and individuals to get information out so they can learn more about the services. But a lot of times what happens is it's tough to take time off of work or schedule to have someone watch your kid. So you can go and learn from these conferences. Now, one silver lining of the pandemic is a lot of the stuff moved online and is recorded. So you're able to kind of view that. But I think we're going to see more of like the in-person conferences come back.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be really cool to offer that service. Like if you can't find a sitter for your kid, bring them to the conference. We have a number of activities, the music room being one of them. And another one like horseback riding or something like that you said would be a really big benefit to the families to help them be able to attend those information sessions.
Sure, yeah. And I remember I did. So I don't know if you're familiar with like the ARC, for example, the ARC of Central Alabama, all these places.
Yep.
They had a conference down in Mobile that I spoke at, and at the end of that, like everyone in the audience, I had passed out shakers to everyone, and we did like a big. I think there were like 100 or so people in that room, but it was really, really cool. So I say that to say like a lot of what we do, or a lot of what I do when it comes to these activities, it's very, very easy, but it's very, very fun, and I try to make it to no matter what age or disability or whatever, is like everyone can engage with it and have fun. So like what you're saying about kids, like we say like we start 7 here because what we do here is very structured. But if you're outside, and if we're going out somewhere, like normally everyone can engage. If you can hold a shaker, if you can hold,
you're involved.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's really cool. She says, thank you. Glad to hear about sessions in the community. Keep exploring additional locations.
I'll keep that in mind. That's it's a very synchronistic thing that happened because I just heard that the other day. Is like, are you expanding? I'm like, and I've never really put much thought into it, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's a very good idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm excited. You guys are 10 years in and continuing to expand.
Well, thank you.
Now, if somebody's thinking about starting lessons, a parent is thinking, hey, I'd like my child to go out there, or if an organization is thinking, we'd love for Mark and the music room to come to us, what is the cost to consumer?
So Our individual sessions. So we have two things we offer here. We offer typical music lessons. We offer neuro-inclusive lessons. So our typical music lessons are once a week, and you schedule them for a time, the same day and time every week. And all of our typical lessons are $120 a month. And our neuro-inclusive lessons are $175 a month. So that's the same time each week, and those are in studio.
Yeah, so you can almost think of it like as a karate kind of class,
Yeah,
where it's a
right.
monthly, you're coming in every
Yeah.
week. Now, what about like, is there homework where the student takes an instrument home with them, or they have to have their own instrument?
Yeah, we really encourage everyone to have their own instrument. Like a lot of times when people start lessons, they don't have one. They don't have a guitar. They don't have drums, which we have instruments here. We don't like rent anything out or anything like that. But yeah, having an instrument is very important. As far as homework, we work on different things each week. So we'll work on like, for example, in guitar, we'll work on like chords and scales and get into songs and things like that. So we will send home. We'll work on material like scale material or chord material, and we'll and they have a folder, so they keep all their music in a folder. And then throughout the week, we say like, if you can put 10 minutes a day into this, you're going to really improve, and then bring that back next week and then move on to the next thing. So in the sense, there is homework, but it's really more of like, here's some things to develop your skills.
Yeah. Now I know that instruments can sometimes be expensive, and there's a little bit of barrier to entry there. Do you know of any organizations that helps offset that cost? Like I honestly don't know how much a drum set costs, but I imagine it can get up into the thousands of dollars.
It's true. Instruments can be pretty expensive. I don't know of any place that helps offset the cost. I do know of a few. I do know of a few people who supply to like schools, for example, and they sell instruments. A friend of mine, Gary Asher, he's been in music for a long time. He sells instruments to schools, and I put, if he actually does a lot of rentals and cartage and things like that. But he's a really great resource if you need instruments. He's in Vestavia, I think. But for myself, I recommend like I have recommendations of what instruments to get, because I try to go for instruments that are high quality and also affordable, and they are, that's the one thing, because you can spend as much as you want on an instrument. Like I can spend $200,000 on a guitar, but do I need to do that, right?
What?
Yeah, there's same thing with drum set. There's $1 million drum sets, but then at the same time there's $250 drum sets.
Do you think they sound like a lot better? So in hockey, there's a difference in sticks
Yeah,
and
right.
skates. There is a difference between like a $20 stick and a $120 stick.
Right.
Not much difference between a $120 stick and a $300 stick.
Right. I think at a certain level, it's like, there's a difference. Once you get past a certain level of like lux for your instrument, it's like, okay, well, I don't
Kind
think
of plateaus off
Right,
there.
right.
You're not getting much. That's what I always say when I go golfing. I got to get new clubs. I got to hit.
Yeah.
Got to hit the ball better. Okay, so we talked about that. Are there any upcoming events that you would like to give a shout out to the community? Say, hey, this is something that we're doing coming up. Love to have you guys there, whether that's online or in person.
Right now, we don't have any special events going. What we have all our lessons going. All of our in-studio programs. We go year round. We haven't put dates out for our camps yet, but we do a summer camp each year, and that's going to be coming up. All these dates will be on our website. Those dates will be on our website, though.
Can we put? Can you put the website in the chat? It is
themusicroomleads.com.
themusicroomleads.com. So we're going to go ahead and put it in there so people can click on it right from there. And as we come to a close here, so we got introduced through a mutual friend, Mr. Doug Marshall, Presbyterian Home for Children. Great guy, and really is, I think, a big leader in the community. If you could give a little backstory how you guys met.
Yeah, that was a very interesting experience. Yeah, Doug's a really good guy. We've been friends for many years. I was at like some special needs expo just with my little table and my drums on it, and I was kind of just trying to meet people and kind of show what I do. And at the time, I was going back to what I talked about, Pat's program, drum disabilities. I was more of a part of that, and I was trying just to make connections there. And he just comes up and starts talking to me. Because I had all my I had these really colorful drums on the table. He starts talking to me about who he is and asking what I do and everything. And we became friends. And he's like, "Oh, you need to. Have you worked with these people or whatever?" And I'm like, "No, I have no idea how any of this works."
Yep.
And he helped me kind of understand what kind of like what the community was all about, like special needs community, and how it works together and what they offer and everything. Because I had no idea,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how much they actually do, like all these organizations do.
Yeah, and they're always looking for services like the music room can give. I feel like he knows how to navigate the disability community. He'll tell you right off the bat, he's like, "You need to speak with this person from here. Here's their number. Here's their email.
Yeah.
Let me know if they don't call back."
Yeah.
I love Mr. Marshall.
I know. He's the next level. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Speaking of that art conference that I spoke at, he was actually there. And I had done, I just had the idea. I'm like, I'm going to do a big music session with the audience. Like, no one has to get up, no one has to move. I'll have people pass out like percussion stuff. And then I had some of my drums in the front, and we kind of like ripped out like a big rhythm all together. And it's fun. I think, and that was a very cool thing. But yeah, Doug's a good guy. He's been a very good friend for a lot of years, and he's really, he's been a big supporter of the music room for a long time. So we really appreciate him.
Yeah, and rightfully so. You guys are doing great things here. We're going to go out to the Presbyterian Home for Children next week, and we're doing another broadcast with them and AIDB on some housing stuff they're doing.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we're excited to go back out there, and he's going to treat us to lunch again.
Oh, there we go.
Enjoy.
Yeah, make sure he takes you to somewhere fancy.
Where was that place we went to last time? He said it was the best spot out there, and it was pretty good food.
From New Orleans.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, as we come to a close here, we always like to ask, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you think an individual or a family member could benefit from hearing?
We talked about this a little bit, but I'll say that mentality is so important, as like a lot of people don't understand the power of like the spoken word and power of thought, for example, because like if you and a lot of times like you say something and it happens, if you say I'm gonna have a bad day, you're probably gonna have a bad day. If you believe that your child can't do something, they're gonna believe they can't do something, and you're kind of gonna be spinning the same hamster wheel for a while. And I understand a lot of times that people don't like to let themselves down or be disappointed, but it's like you can't progress unless you try. You can't progress unless you like have that thought of like we can do this, whatever. And you can't let life get to you too much in terms of circumstance. But like just belief, believing you can do something. It's really, in a lot of cases it's up to you.
Yeah, I've heard a saying before: belief, and then like comma, it's real.
It's true.
I always thought that was a cool statement. I was like, yeah, that's an actual thing. Like, it's real. If you believe in it, it's probably going to be more likely that you accomplish that.
For sure, yeah. And that's the same, I'll give a personal example real quick. When I was going through everything that I went through with epilepsy and coming in and out of like surgeries and procedures and things like that, I never put too much thought about it into it. Is like I didn't, because like it was normal for me, kind of having this disorder was like so normal. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about like, well, what if X, Y, and Z is like, I just keep going. And so you can't spend you can't waste a lot of like mental energy on, certain negative aspects. At the same time, you don't want to neglect things that can happen. You kind of just want to have the best possible outlook on things, even if kind of reason denies it, if that makes sense.
Like the law of attraction,
Of
the
course.
secret. And I always go through if I'm trying to create a scenario or like a day and be intentional about it. It's like if everything went perfect, what does that look like?
Yeah.
It was the best day ever. What does that day look like?
Yeah.
And kind of jot that down. Or if this was the best this, then this is exactly what it would look like. Everything went exactly there. And to put myself in that mind frame while I'm writing those things helps out a lot. And so I kind of cut out those negative thoughts. And the other thing that you kind of touched on, I think is really cool is, taking that first step. And you don't have to always see like tomorrow, today. Make that first step. Make the call to music room. Get in here. You're not going to learn how to do the guitar if you've never done it in a week. It's going to be a process, but you got to be willing to fail and take that first step.
Yeah, and no matter if it's music or whatever, it's like you got nothing to lose. Like you try something you don't like it, no big deal. You know, whatever. And then maybe you find something you do like, and that's kind of like the magic of life is like you have the choice to try something and maybe not get it right, but then later on in life things work out.
Yeah, and I think it's important not to get down on yourself if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I have failed more than I've succeeded.
Yeah, I think most successful people have. So, Mr. Lucas, thank you for spending the morning with us and teaching us about everything that you guys do here at the Music Room. And we hope that you guys get a bunch of calls from individuals and organizations that want the services that you guys have. So.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. It was very fun.
Yeah. And at this point, we'll kind of look at our respective cameras and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, guys.
And Clifton will go ahead and take us out. And we will turn